Hello, Talking Fight fans, boxing fans around the world. Welcome to another episode of the Olympics featuring Christian from the Friday night panel. What have you discovered? What do you have for us today? News, updates? What do you got? What did you find out?
Well, we've been taking a little bit of a look around Asia, South Asia in specific, but Asia in general over the last couple of days, just to see what's going on over there in preparation for the Olympics. And we've seen a mix of things. We're seeing, some countries at this point have basically given up hope on an Olympic showing, and other countries that are really ramping up their 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 activity in preparation for the Tokyo Olympic Games. So we've got several stories this afternoon we're going to cover quickly here. First of which comes to us from Karachi in Pakistan. So last month's cancellation of the World Olympic qualifying round has left at this point pretty much no chance for the Pakistani boxers to return to the Olympics. And it's been about 17 years since they've been there. It seems unlikely that any Pakistani fighter will be able to earn an Olympic seat. National fighters not only finished rather poorly at the Asian qualifiers in Jordan last year, but also have not been at the top of their game in the international circuit over the last 4 years. They're also citing lack of funding and exposure at this point in time has impeded their growth. And that's a story that we hear just kind of all too often these days. So Pakistani boxers last featured in an Olympic Games back in 2004 in Athens. Pakistan reached very close to earning an Olympic seat for 2012 in London when the now pro boxer Mohammed Wasim qualified for the quarterfinals in the Asian qualifying round for London. But Wasim faltered in the quarters, leaving Pakistan with just, once again, nobody headed off to the Olympics. In boxing, of course, other sports, different story, but we're interested in boxing. Although nothing major was really expected from the national team at the now canceled Paris World Qualifiers, at that point in time, there was still at least a bit of hope for them. Pakistan's head coach, Arshad Hussain, was quoted as saying, "There was hope, but now I don't see any chance as per the criteria announced for the distribution of the 32 men's seats." Now, so at this point, the IOC tripartite commission places are the only minor chance left for the Pakistan's national team. But there too, it seems a bit tough, as there are at this point, there's only 5 places for men and 3 for women that are going to be allocated through the tripartite commission. So the Pakistan Boxing Federation secretary, Colonel Nasir Tung, did say, we tried our level best to try to get some chances for our fighters. Pakistan had wanted to hold camp for the world qualifiers starting in April, but because of that qualification, the federation at this point in time has shifted its stance as well as its preparation and its focus towards the 2023 South Asian Games, which Pakistan will be hosting as well in 4 major cities in the Punjab province. So at this point in time, the Pakistanis have basically given up hope of a Tokyo showing for this year. I mean, they still got fingers crossed for a tripartite placement or two, but it's unlikely at this phase of the game. Jumping across the border now, Indian boxer Mary Kom has said that Tokyo will be her final appearance at the Olympics. But she does take solace from the fact that her bronze medal in 2012 has inspired young girls in the country to take up the sport. Now, Kom is a 6-time world champion and has been boxing for 20 years, but had to wait until the London Games in 2012 for a shot at an Olympic medal when women were first allowed to compete in the boxing category. Now, she was quoted as saying, "Tokyo will be my last Olympics. Age matters here. I'm 38 now, going on 39. 3 technically, but 4 more years is a long time. Pretty sure I won't even be allowed, even if I'm willing to carry on to Paris 2024. Now, as we know, and we've covered on this show before, the age limit for the Olympics typically is 40. Now, for Tokyo, it was extended to 41. That was just because the Olympics had been pushed back that year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Kom did fail to make the cut for the Rio 2016 games, but did the Rio Games in 2016, but won the opportunity to qualify for Tokyo 2022 after beating a younger challenger in the Asian Oceania qualifiers last year. Well, I guess at this point it would have been 2019. But so that's the last. Pretty soon that'll be the last we're going to see out of Mary Kom. For our third and final story this afternoon, though, we're going to be looking at another team that's a national team that's ramping up activity as we get closer to the games. The Philippines is sending their national team to Thailand for a training camp over the next 6 weeks. World champion Neti Petekio and Olympic-bound Irish Magno, have gradually regained their form after weeks of continuous workouts and conditioning inside the training bubble created by the Philippine Sports Commission in Laguna Province. At this point, they're saying that they're ready to elevate their training and their preparation for the Tokyo Games after the team has now left, I guess yesterday now on Wednesday, to set up a 6-week-long training camp in Thailand. Petekio said, coming from a long respite, the training bubble was a big, big help for us, and I'm sure training in Thailand is going to benefit us even more. According to the Association of Boxing Alliances of the Philippines, or ABAP, Secretary General Ed Pixum, the overseas training in Thailand is necessary since the national boxers are in dire need of sparring partners. Pixon added that the International Olympic Committee will announce the qualifiers from Asia in 2 weeks' time. So they'll be announcing those people who have already announced they're not only qualified through the Asia Oceania qualifier, but also those boxers under the new system and the canceled qualifiers, the canceled world qualifier, who's going to be taking those top spots. Now, Petekio, the reigning world women's featherweight world champion, as well as light flyweight Carlo Pelham, are now left to hope that their lofty rankings are going to give them a shot at joining Magno and Yumer Marcial in the Olympic Games scheduled for July 23rd through August 8th. Accompanying the boxers to Thailand are also going to be the coaches, obviously, Nolito Velasco, Ronald Chavez, Elmer Pamisa, Ronaldo Galido, and Australian boxing consultant Donald Abnett. So, Graham, Pakistan's shifting focus at this point to the South Asian Games in 2023. India's top female fighters hanging up the gloves this summer, at least Olympically speaking. I'm not sure what her plans are following the Olympics. Not everyone has the same cutoff. And the Filipinos are ramping up activity headed into Tokyo. So we're seeing a range of different things happening, and this seems to be a topic that you and I keep coming back to, at least once or twice a week, seems to be the disparity in support that we're seeing from one national Olympic committee to the next. So, we're looking at Pakistan, where the national team is saying that they're not getting the funds and exposure that are really going to help elevate them to that level where there are going to be Olympic contenders. And then you go right across the border into India, where we're seeing a very highly developed boxing program, where we're seeing top-rated fighters being sent to multiple tournaments around the world, in a very full schedule and performing very well. If it wasn't for, as we know, for that COVID-19 outbreak that just happened at Boxem in Spain, last week in Spain, India was due to fight 9 of those finals and took home 8 silvers because they had to walk away from them. So we had walkovers. So fielding strong boxers, and then right across the border, we've got no support. Seeing the same thing with Zimbabwe stepping up and stepping up with money to send their fighters to various regionals and internationals. And then we've got Zambia on the other side saying, the national team of Zambia is saying that we're not getting the support from the government. We're not getting the funds to do these things. The government obviously saying that it's just COVID-19 precautions. But we're seeing this disparity from one country to the next. And I'm curious to see how it's all going to play out at the end of the day. If it's just going to be a straight up, you're going to look and say, no, better boxing program than these guys. No, it's going to be it might as well be a walkover. And how much this training is going to shift between these really well-developed programs versus these less developed programs, even from countries such as Pakistan, which is a large country, large population base to pull from. And they do have some sporting pedigree in Pakistan as well. Just they're not sinking the money into boxing.
When we first started, it's okay. When we first started this series, it was notwithstanding the pandemic, I was saying, I just look forward to seeing the best of the best compete at the Olympics in Tokyo. But as we look under the microscope, we see more clearly now it's not just as simple as the best of the best being able to compete, but those who can afford, and not only afford personally, but then have their national bodies support them with international tournaments. and furthermore, sending them to the Olympics if they do qualify. So it does get a bit complicated, without a doubt, and it's been a great exploration on your own behalf. But it just astounds me because we do live in a great country that does support its amateur athletes and has a lot of professional bodies, quite frankly, as we've discussed also, whose day job it is to support those amateur athletes. So, and get them to the competitions they need to in order to be at the competitive level and win, hopefully, and gain a podium spot. But there are other countries that obviously just do not, they have other priorities, as you and I both know, having been around the world and seen these practices in these developing nations especially. So it is too bad, but I guess it is the reality that, yes, we'll see the best of the best of those
who can afford it. Yeah.
All right.
Ongoing disparity, but that is what's happening this weekend in Asia, in boxing in Asia, at least as far as the Olympic goes. Pakistan's basically hung up their gloves at this point in time, and they're shifting focus, and they're not thinking in terms of Tokyo at this point at all.
Right. Might be realistic, who knows? But yeah, as you were saying, huge country population-wise, and you'd think a large number of fighters coming up from, just like in the Philippines. Well, I guess I'm being a bit generalist, but you'd think that Pakistan would have a large number.
There is a strong tradition for boxing in Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, in all these former British colonies, because boxing had such a strong tradition in Britain. And that was something that they brought over. And we'll call it one of the few positive things that they left behind then. When they finally did leave, we'll call it one of the few positive things, was a strong boxing tradition and a strong training programs and things like that, which obviously have been developing since the 40s.
I thought you were going to say, and a strong cricket program.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the when it comes to cricket, I think the student has become the master on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I believe if you're a cricket player, that's where you want to be, is playing in Indian Premier League or whatever the ICC, I believe, is the league.
Yeah, I mean,
but yeah, so I mean, that's the student becoming the master. But they're not far off in boxing either. Again, like what we've been seeing in these tournaments around the world with India's amateur program, and that does, in some way, shape, or form, you have to say, has its roots at least buried deep in the British system, in British boxing tradition. Right. That would have been brought over with the army at the time, and up until the 1940s, we're looking at would have been Ceylon at the time, now Sri Lanka, would have been part of that. Pakistan would have been part of the British Raj at the time as well as Bangladesh. So they all had access, not all had equal access, but we'll say that boxing tradition definitely is prevalent in all of those countries. It's just a matter of who still today is carrying on that tradition and who's really holding up their fighters and who's supporting them and who isn't.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Money makes the world go round. Yeah. All right. So I guess we have Friday's show, and then it's the weekend.
That's tomorrow still.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just making sure that I'm on the right day.
Well, today's Thursday, right?
I hope so.
Okay. All right. Yes. I meant, yes, we just have Friday's show to go, and then it's the weekend.
There we are.
All right. Cool. Thanks very much. Appreciate all that feedback and research that you've been doing. And we will see you tomorrow.
We'll see you a couple of times tomorrow.
Oh, yes, that's right. Friday, we have several shows. That's right. And thank you to the good viewership for hanging in there and listening to our repartee. Remember to like, share, subscribe. And if you are subscribing, hit that notification bell and receive our notifications. Thank you very much. And again, we'll see you tomorrow.
Have a good one.